A young TikToker thought it would be hilarious to perform a viral dance just inches from a stoic National Guard soldier standing post. But as his followers laughed behind the screen, something happened on site that no one expected, turning his joke into a moment he would never forget. Comment below and let us know. Have you ever witnessed someone disrespect authority in public? What happened? It was a bright Saturday afternoon in Washington, D.C., and Constitution Avenue buzzed with tourists, families, and the ever-present hum of political life. In the shadow of the Capitol building, a National Guard unit stood at ceremonial attention outside the Smithsonian National Museum of American History, part of a rotating honor guard program meant to remind visitors of the sacrifices made for freedom. The sidewalk was cordoned off just enough to give these soldiers a respectful perimeter. Nothing too obstructive, but a clear sign. This was a place of reverence. Among the crowd stood Specialist Marcus Reed, a 27-year-old soldier from Ohio. 6 feet tall, perfectly groomed with posture as rigid as marble, Reed wasn't just a guard. He was a symbol of discipline. He had served 2 deployments overseas and volunteered for this duty because, as he said, "If Americans can't see the values I swore to uphold, then I have no business wearing the uniform." To the average onlooker, his presence seemed almost statue-like. Sunglasses masked his eyes, his expression unreadable. Yet beneath that exterior was a man trained to respond with precision, poise, and dignity, even in the face of provocation. Across the plaza, a very different kind of figure prepared to make his entrance. Jace Monroe, 22 years old, carried the energy of 1,000 social media likes. With bleached blonde hair, oversized sunglasses, and a phone mounted on a selfie stick, he strutted confidently toward the National Guard post, flanked by 2 friends filming from different angles. Jace wasn't new to pranks. His TikTok account, Jace the Jester, had over 300,000 followers, many drawn to his social experiments, where he'd test the patience of waiters, public workers, and even police officers with staged awkward encounters. But this time, he wanted something bigger, something patriotic. As he approached the museum steps, he muttered to his phone, "All right, guys, watch me wake up G.I. Joe over here. Bet I can get a smile before the timer runs out." Jace stepped into the open area directly in front of Specialist Reed, still within legal bounds, but now encroaching on the zone of solemnity. Tourists nearby slowed their steps. A woman holding a child whispered, "What is he doing?" Reed didn't flinch. His training was clear. No eye contact, no reaction. Maintain military bearing. With music from his phone beginning to blare, a remix of a popular TikTok dance hit, Jace began swinging his arms, popping his hips, and moving in exaggerated rhythm, performing a full-blown dance less than 4 feet from the soldier. The crowd grew still. Some watched with awkward fascination, others with growing discomfort. An elderly veteran, wearing a Vietnam hat, narrowed his eyes and shook his head. Jace paused mid-dance, exaggerated a wink to the camera, and leaned closer to Reed. "Yo, soldier boy, you get Spotify up there or nah?" he said with a mocking chuckle. Still no movement. Specialist Reed remained perfectly still. What started as laughter from a few of Jace's friends began to turn into murmurs of disapproval from the crowd. A woman with a stroller turned to her husband and said, "That's just disrespectful." A young man holding an American flag took a step forward and shouted, "Hey man, that's a soldier. You should show some respect." Jace held up a hand in mock apology. "Relax, I'm just trying to bring some joy to your boring afternoon." But there was no joy in the faces surrounding him, only growing discomfort. And still, Specialist Reed held firm. Silent, steady, imposing. Feeling the crowd shift, but sensing the opportunity to go viral, Jace decided it was time to escalate. He suddenly dropped to one knee in front of Reed, struck a fake propose pose, and waved the phone camera toward the soldier's face. "What do you say, buddy? Will you follow me back on TikTok?" There were audible gasps now. Someone muttered, "This is going too far." Jace's friend behind the camera laughed nervously. "Dude, maybe chill." Jace ignored him and reached into his hoodie pocket, pulling out a plastic toy medal, dangling it toward the soldier. "For your bravery, in standing still," he said sarcastically, trying to pin it to Reed's uniform. That's when the atmosphere changed completely. A woman nearby gasped loudly, "Oh no, you do not touch a soldier on duty." Jace didn't actually make contact, but he was mere inches away. Despite everything, mockery, provocation, near contact, Specialist Reed did not move. Not one twitch, blink, or tilt of the head. It was unnerving, even to Jace. He stepped back slowly, suddenly unsure if this had gone from funny to uncomfortable. Then, his camera caught something. Not Reed, but the slow, deliberate movement of two uniformed men in the background, approaching from the museum's main entrance. National Guard security. Jace tried to laugh it off, backing up toward his friends. All right, joke's over. Let's dip." But the growing tension in the crowd didn't fade. Whispers turned into side conversations. Phones were pulled out. People were recording now, not for TikTok clout, but because something real was unfolding. And Specialist Reed? He still hadn't moved, but the situation around him had. And for Jace Monroe, the real lesson was just beginning. The atmosphere around the Smithsonian Plaza had shifted from casual curiosity to uneasy tension. The mood was no longer light. It was heavy with anticipation. And Jace Monroe, once so sure of himself and his antics, now found the spotlight burning a little too brightly. He backed away slightly, waving off the growing crowd, trying to save face. "Okay, folks, show's over. Just a harmless joke. No need to call in the cavalry." But it was too late. From the side entrance of the museum, two National Guard personnel were approaching in lockstep. They weren't running, but their pace was purposeful. Both were dressed in digital camouflage, sidearms holstered, expressions unreadable beneath their caps. One was clearly a senior ranking officer, his crisp uniform and silver insignia leaving no doubt about his authority. The crowd began to part instinctively. Conversations hushed. Cameras kept rolling. Jace's friend whispered behind the phone, "Dude, I think they're coming for you." Jace swallowed, his confident grin flickering. "Just keep filming. Maybe we can spin this. It'll blow up online." But even he didn't believe that anymore. The guards reached him in seconds. The senior officer, Lieutenant Avery, as his name tag read, spoke in a tone calm but unmistakably firm. "Sir, step away from the soldier and turn off your device." Jace chuckled nervously, trying to lighten the mood. "Hey, no disrespect. I was just doing a little content for social media. Nothing serious." Avery didn't blink. "You are interfering with a ceremonial guard post. That is considered a disruption of official military duties. Step back now." Jace's followers were watching live. He knew it. Thousands of viewers. Comments pouring in. Some cheering him on. Others warning him. He tried again, attempting charm. "Come on, Lieutenant. It was just a little dance. No harm done. Look, I didn't even touch him." But just then, a voice rang out behind the crowd. A woman's voice, clear and piercing. "You humiliated yourself, young man, not him." Everyone turned. An older woman, perhaps in her 70s, wearing a blue dress and holding a small American flag in one hand, stepped forward. Her back was straight, her gaze unwavering. "My grandson died in uniform in Afghanistan. He stood for what that man stands for, and you turned it into a joke." Jace's face dropped. For the first time, the words hit him. Not from authority, not from a soldier. but from someone who had paid the price that the uniform represented. He opened his mouth to speak, but nothing came out. Lieutenant Avery gave a nod to his partner, who stepped beside Jace's two friends and instructed them to lower their phones. "You're free to go," Avery said to the two, "but your friend is coming with us for questioning." The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't laugh. There was no mob mentality. Just silence, thick, weighted silence, as Jace was calmly escorted toward the museum entrance. As he passed Specialist Reed, still standing motionless, still a statue of discipline, Jace paused for half a second. He looked into the eyes of the soldier. They didn't move. They didn't acknowledge. But in their stillness, there was judgment, and it burned deeper than any shout could. Inside the museum's side wing, Jace was led into a secure administrative office. It wasn't a police station, but it might as well have been. There were two desks, a large American flag on the wall, and a coffee pot half full on a small table. Lieutenant Avery sat across from him, laying down a clipboard with a blank report sheet. Name? Jace Monroe. Occupation? I guess you'd say content creator. Avery looked up. For money? Yes, mostly through TikTok. Avery gave a nod. No smirk, no sarcasm, just a slow, steady breath. Then he leaned back slightly. You think this is content? Jace shrugged, his voice low. I thought it would be. It usually is. Avery reached into a drawer and pulled out a laminated folder. Inside were photos. Not of Jace, not of this incident. Photos of soldiers, standing in formation. Some in the rain, some under blazing sun, some at funerals. Do you know what that post represents out there? Jace remained quiet. That soldier out there is not decoration. He represents every man and woman who served and sacrificed. He stands for the fallen. He stands for the buried. You danced in front of him like he was an actor at a theme park. Jace looked down. For once, his cocky demeanor had vanished. I didn't know it meant that much. I was just chasing the algorithm. Avery shook his head. You were chasing attention, and in doing so, you disrespected the people who will never be able to speak for themselves again. He let the silence settle. Jace didn't cry, but his eyes stung. The weight of what he'd done, no longer funny, no longer clout-worthy, was finally sinking in. After several minutes, Avery spoke again. You're not under arrest, but this report will be filed. You'll be banned from participating in any events near ceremonial posts. If you repeat this behavior, the consequences will escalate. Jace nodded. Understood. Avery stood, extended a hand. I hope you use your platform more wisely next time. Jace shook it, and for the first time that day, his handshake wasn't performative. It was real. Back outside, the crowd had thinned, but a few remained. The older woman from before was sitting on a nearby bench. As Jace passed by, he stopped in front of her. I'm sorry, he said. She looked up. Her face wasn't angry, just tired. Then learn and tell others. Jace didn't reply. He just nodded, then turned and walked away. Across the plaza, Specialist Reed finally received a soft signal in his earpiece. His shift was complete. Without a word, he turned with slow precision and began his march back to the guard quarters. The sun glinted off his polished shoes, each step echoing with authority. The lesson had been delivered. But the story wasn't over yet. Because that video? It was already spreading across the internet, and not for the reasons Jace had hoped. After the tense meeting in the museum's secure office, Jace Monroe stepped back into a world that felt alien. The sterile white walls and the lingering echo of Lieutenant Avery's measured words still clung to him as he was escorted out by two uniformed guards. The heavy door closed behind him with a finality that mirrored the abrupt end of his online persona's bravado. Outside, the afternoon light had grown softer, as if the world itself was urging him to reflect on the gravity of the moment. The plaza was now nearly empty, the once curious onlookers dispersed by the unsettling events. A hush replaced the chatter, and the murmurs that had earlier filled the air were replaced by a silence thick with contemplation. Jace's steps felt unsteady as he made his way slowly along the paved path, his mind a turbulent mix of indignation, regret, and dawning realization. Every footstep seemed to echo the lessons he had been forced to learn in a matter of minutes. Lessons about honor, respect, and the cost of trivializing sacred symbols of service. He passed by groups of former onlookers, some with sympathetic expressions, others with disappointment etched on their faces. One older gentleman, his eyes glistening with unspoken memories, nodded solemnly at Jace as if to say that this was a crossroads, a moment where youthful recklessness met the weight of duty and sacrifice. Jace's heart pounded in his chest as he recalled the silent, unwavering gaze of Specialist Marcus Reed. That look, void of anger yet heavy with quiet reproach, would haunt him for many days to come. In the following minutes, Jace found himself on a quiet sidewalk away from the grandeur of the museum. He pulled out his phone, the very device that had once promised him a legion of adoring followers, and tried to play back the footage of the confrontation. The video showed everything: the defiant dance moves, the momentary smug smile, and finally the ice-cold stare of a soldier who embodied discipline and the enduring spirit of those who serve. The comments section was already lighting up, but not with the adoration he had hoped for. Instead, there were messages of shock, disappointment, and a growing chorus calling for respect toward those in uniform. As the reality of his situation sank in, Jace's initial instinct was to rationalize his actions as nothing more than a misguided attempt at humor, a stunt meant to entertain. But deep inside, guilt began to replace his defiant energy. The realization that his actions had trivialized the profound sacrifice of countless men and women, those who had lost friends and even their lives in the name of freedom, hit him like a tidal wave. His online clout, once his primary measure of worth, now seemed painfully shallow in comparison to the values that had been so blatantly disrespected that day. Meanwhile, back at the museum, Specialist Reed resumed his duties with the precision and quiet dignity that had marked him all along. He had never lost his composure, his silence a testament to the discipline instilled in him through years of rigorous training and sacrifice. As he rejoined his unit, his every measured step along the flagstone pathway reinforced the sanctity of the post he so faithfully guarded. For him and his comrades, this was not just a job. It was a solemn commitment to uphold the honor of a nation built on courage and sacrifice. News of the incident spread rapidly across social media and local news outlets. Overnight, the video of Jace's reckless antics circulated far and wide, capturing the attention of viewers who were both appalled and inspired by the unyielding presence of military discipline. Influencers who had once cheered on Jace began to question the ethics behind chasing virality at the expense of tradition and respect. Local talk shows invited veterans and military historians to discuss the profound meaning behind the ceremonial duties that many had taken for granted. The public discourse shifted from a fleeting moment of online amusement to a broader conversation about the importance of honoring those who serve. In quiet moments that evening, as dusk settled over Washington, D.C., Jace found himself alone in a modest motel room. The glow of his phone screen, now darkened by incoming notifications of disapproval and regret, reminded him of the irreversible damage done not only to his reputation, but to his understanding of responsibility. The weight of his mistake pressed heavily on him. In a series of self-reflective messages he recorded privately, a stark contrast to his usual energetic vlogs, he admitted that his pursuit of fleeting digital fame had blinded him to a reality steeped in sacrifice and honor. That night, as rain began to patter against the window, Jace penned a long, heartfelt message on his social media platform. In it, he apologized to the families of fallen soldiers, to the servicemen and women who had dedicated their lives to protecting freedoms, and to anyone who had been disillusioned by his callous behavior. He wrote about the lessons he had learned, not just about accountability, but about the profound respect that every uniformed individual deserved. He spoke of the silent, commanding presence of Specialist Reed and how that moment had forever altered his perspective on what it truly meant to serve a nation. By the next morning, as the rain tapered off and a tentative light spread across the city, a transformation in Jace was already evident. Though he was no longer the reckless content creator he had once been, his newfound humility and genuine desire to learn from his missteps resonated with a segment of his audience. Many appreciated his vulnerability and his commitment to making amends. The story of that day became more than a viral spectacle. It evolved into a modern parable about the dangers of trivializing duty and the value of respect. Across the nation, discussions ignited on forums, social media threads, and community gatherings. People debated the balance between free expression and respect for institutions that symbolized national sacrifice. Veterans shared personal anecdotes about their own experiences with public misinterpretation, while young citizens began to recognize that the allure of internet fame could never replace the deep-rooted honor that comes with serving one's country. As evening fell once more on the Capitol's reflective silhouette, the enduring image of Specialist Reed standing guard emerged as a quiet beacon of steadfast duty, a living reminder that honor is not a commodity to be traded for likes or views. Jace, now a changed man, resolved to use his platform differently. He pledged to spotlight stories of valor and the true meaning of service, hoping to honor the legacy of those who defended the ideals he had once carelessly mocked. In closing, this dramatic encounter teaches us that respect is not automatically earned by shouting or performing for an audience. It is cultivated through sacrifice, discipline, and humility. It reminds us that behind every uniform lies a story of courage, pain, and unyielding commitment to a higher cause. We invite you to reflect on this. In a world dominated by social media trends and fleeting virality, how can we ensure that we honor the true heroes among us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching this story unfold. If you found this narrative impactful, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss another powerful episode from Authority Watch. Remember, true respect is earned through honor and discipline, not through fleeting online fame. At Authority Watch, we believe in more than just stories. We stand for the values that make these stories matter: honor, discipline, and respect for those who serve. Every week, we bring you powerful, real-life encounters where America's most disciplined authority figures, whether Marines, National Guardsmen, Secret Service agents, or ceremonial guards, respond with calm strength in the face of chaos. If this story moved you, if it made you reflect, if it gave you a new perspective on what it truly means to wear the uniform, don't just scroll away. Be part of something meaningful. Hit that subscribe button to join a growing community of people who believe in integrity, courage, and accountability. We don't chase drama. We reveal the deeper truths behind it. From dramatic moments on sacred ground to unexpected acts of heroism in the streets, every video is a reminder of what still deserves respect in today's fast-paced world. Turn on notifications so you never miss a lesson in honor. Leave a comment and let us know what part of today's story hit you the hardest, or how you think we can all do better in respecting those who serve. And don't forget to share this video with someone who needs to see that respect is still alive and worth defending. This isn't just entertainment. This is Authority Watch, where disrespect meets discipline and learns a lesson worth remembering.